TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?
Hello and welcome to Bits and Pieces, the friendliest cricket podcast, which this week sent out a call for people to join on the pod. And much like a professor who offered a course on critiquing Michelangelo's David, I think nobody dared join because you can't critique perfection, since we are going to discuss the IPL in this episode. Looks like it's going to be bits represented by me, that's Tariq, and pieces represented by Max on the other side of the time zone out here. Well, we also got in touch with Joe Rogan last moment to try and get him on. We were okay to look past all the vaccine denial stuff, but then we found out that he was okay with MS Dhoni coming in at number 9 for CSK. So we had to drop him. I now have the next best option, that is Max. Welcome, Max, to our first full IPL pod of the season.
Yes, thank you, Tariq Bhai. But here we are, 2 weeks in. We've had, quite a few games. First look at all the teams. Most of them have played 2 games. By the time this episode is out, everyone would have played 2 games, and it's looking pretty interesting. It's early reactions, but you can easily say that nothing has gone to script so far.
Yeah, surely nobody expected RCB, after playing 2 away games at Eden Gardens and at Chepauk, to be sitting on top with a run rate of plus 2.2.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention this is 18 years since the inception of the league, and there's a certain number 18 in the team, and this could all be numerically, stars could be pointing a certain way. So far, stars have been pointing a certain way. They never have won an opening game in a long time. They won an opening game. They have never traveled to Chennai and made a happy trip back, which they have now. So you never know. I don't want to say those 4 damned words, but again, jokes aside, that team does look a lot better because generally their sticking point has been their bowling, right? They've always just focused on, we'll get a Gale, we'll get a Maxwell, we'll get a Watson, but between Bhuvi, Hazelwood, Krunal Pandya, and then Livingston has shown up surprisingly, something which no one expected. So he has shown up both with bat and ball. So yeah, Yash Dayal doing well. So yeah, that team is looking formidable, definitely. They still haven't gone home. So that third miracle is still yet to happen, right? They have won an opening game. They have won in Chennai. Winning at home is the third part of the miracle. So if that happens, then yes, you might have to say the 4 damned words.
Yes, because I think the first thing that struck me immediately after yesterday's win was that RCB have opened with 2 wins away from home. But that's exactly how the RCB women also opened the WPL season this time. And then they had to go and play those games at home. But nonetheless, obviously the most and probably the clearest and loudest statement has come from those 2 wins of RCB. Not to say that there has not been enough drama and narrative in the other games. So we'll begin, Max, by asking you about your other favorite team, which is Sunrisers Hyderabad. Please take us through. They seem to have picked up from where they left off last season. But then again, we've had, sort of one of this and one of that.
That's the beauty of the IPL, right? You're dealt these cards, and it's how you form a squad and come up with those. And so I think they understood that very well. They know this is where we're playing at. So they've just gone with all the firepower from last year. They even added one more guy because Rahul Tripathi used to play number 3 for them last year. They're like, no, we don't need this anchor guy anymore. We'll add one more guy and just continue the blitzkrieg. And that's exactly what that team is. However, which is why that first game they made 286, 287.
286,
They were short of their own record. This is like, तुम खुद खेल लो. तुम अपना ही tournament बना के खुद खेल लो. That's how it is. That is how, at that first game it looked like everyone is going to play a tournament where, they're trying to score 200 or 190, and these guys are playing a separate tournament scoring 250 plus. That's how the memes were coming out. But the second game, and even the second game, this guy goes, dude, this is like that an episode from Tom and Jerry where, Tom hands Jerry a hammer and Jerry hits him with it. because Rishabh Pant won the toss and then said, "Yeah, we are going to bat. Why don't you go and bat?" Pant won the toss, and despite knowing what happened the first game, gave them the hammer. Like, that game turned a complete different direction, which almost suggests that SRH are vulnerable. But it's still early days in the tournament. I still don't think, and that team with the firepower they have, they could drop an odd game here and there. But yeah, that team is very dangerous. I mean, maybe if they go to a rank turner like Ekana Stadium or somewhere else, maybe they might have a tough time. But otherwise, and again, we can't even trust the Chennai pitch anymore. The coach himself has said that in
Even
the
Stephen
last
Fleming does not.
yeah, in the last 3 years we don't know what we're getting, so which is very shocking for me. So yeah, that team, especially given that they're going to be playoffs at that ground, right? So yeah, that team they dropped an odd game, but I would usually see beyond that.
Okay, and of course we have that one team in the financial capital that seems to be up to some clownery. But enough about the New York Mets. Let's talk about Mumbai Indians.
As the time of this recording, Mumbai hasn't played their second
Second game
game
yet,
yet.
yeah.
So it's hard to probably look at them based on that one game because again, it was against the team that has generally had their number, and also just like how RCB never wins an opening game, Mumbai also never wins an opening game. But it works. But when Mumbai doesn't win an opening game, it's actually good for them. So they generally lose their opening two games and then come and go and do one of those runs. So Mumbai losing the first game is actually per script. It's not unlike some of the other teams, and they were without Hardik. But one of the things with Mumbai that fascinates me, despite I hate that franchise so much, is their scouting. Man, what scouting they do, man. And like of all the guys they've unearthed, even in the previous seasons, even though they weren't making the playoffs, they had Nehal Badera, who they got. They had Anshul Kamboj, and there was this other fast, Akash Madwal, who they got. And, both of those guys this season have been poached by other franchises, but they're for, 10x, 20x. And their scouting is beyond. And now they found this new kid, Vignesh Putur, who did
Who has not even played for a senior team yet.
yeah, and he was there. He was almost keeping them in the game. So yeah, that they had that one loss as of this recording, but again they were without Hardik, so the balance was a bit off and all that. So it's early. It's too early to call for MI, I think, because that team still is gunmen. When Bumrah comes back, that team, yeah, with Bumrah, Hardik, like you have four international captains playing in that team, right? So yeah, I don't think it's time to you can call them off. Maybe with the next episode we can think about this again.
So, and speaking of teams which have made poorer starts, I think while RCB's has been two statement wins, and we are looking at them as front runners at least early on. It's Rajasthan Royals who have been at the other end of this because they have
I
lost
know,
both their
man.
opening, both their
Like,
games.
so if you think about RR, right, things from last year or the previous last few years, what you remember is they had five bowlers, right? They had five proper bowlers, and they had a pretty good explosive three with Butler, Jaiswal, Samson, and Riyan Parag. But at least they had that. Now they're like, okay, they've just let all their bowlers go. They didn't retain any of those. And then, the guys who they brought in back don't evoke on paper itself, they don't evoke any confidence. So, yeah.
And one of them
And
is Jofra Archer, who has been like continuously bowling right there in the slot, has been getting smashed to all parts.
they don't have a plan B, right? It's the same thing that's happened. There is zero plan B. And from a team that had two, okay, subjective, but again, since no one else is on the spot, I can say it's two gun spinners. From a team that had two gun spinners to go to Tikshana and Hasranga to overseas options now is putting a lot on the line. Their top five is fully Indian. They put the I in the IPL. If you if you can say that, with Jaiswal, Samson, Parag, Dhruv Jurel, and the only overseas batter they have is our man Hetmar. That's the only overseas batter. So they don't even, I don't think they even have a backup for Hetmeyer. if something
They,
even
they,
happens. So
they do not, and they have been underutilizing him otherwise in terms of like his entry point in the lineup as well.
yeah, and
Obviously,
he was
Rian Parag seems to be confused about his position in, well, the ideal position in
and
the
add to that, I
lineup.
think they also have Nitish Rana, right? So they have Nitish
They
Rana
do,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, they do. So that's your
So that's their and then that's when the bowling they're like, okay, chalo, batting Desi, bowling with Desi, and the bowling then they have okay, Tikshana and Hasaranga and our man from England. But yeah, that's just not working. I mean, it always has to be a balance, right? You cannot just say I'll have the old RCB way of I'll go all my overseas as batters and then you suck, or this way which I'll go fully overseas on my bowlers and then also you suck.
from lack of options to I want to talk about this game in particular, mainly because it probably shows us the way forward for some of the games in this league. And also, two very interesting teams were part of it. Easily, I think a lot of people's favorite of the season so far, and definitely mine because I said it's an instant IPL classic, which was the game between Lucknow and Delhi, which had more twists and turns than a road in San Francisco, I guess. However, what I found most fascinating about the game was I think impact subs on both sides made contributions. There were small contributions from everybody all along, and there were amazing shifts of momentum, which I do not remember having seen in a lot of IPL games. I mean, there are twists and turns in IPL games, but they tend to come in bunches. This level of even shifts of momentum across both the first and the second innings, we really have not seen. So what does that tell us about sort of the model? Because the point that you're making, Max, about the RR, for example, not having enough options or not having enough flexibility. Whereas both these two teams seem to potentially have that. They're well, early days, but position in the table also kind of reflects that. So talk us through that game or your take from there or your impression of
So
those two teams.
that was such a bizarre game, right? Also, like initially when we looked at the teams, we like when people picking like yeah, Punjab is one of the worst teams. It's like it's just something you just say always, right? And LSG also, right? When after the auction, like you had the highest purse and you don't have openers. That's how that team was. You don't have an opening option, and you come to the tournament, come to the auction with a full purse, and yet you don't pick openers. It just didn't make sense. And afterwards, like flies, it was almost comical where people are just dropping. They don't have any bowlers, Mohsin Khan, Mayank Yadav, where people are just dropping. And then they go pick up Lord Shardul, who was unsold at the auction. Remember, he was unsold at the auction, and they go bring him in because this guy is injured, out for the season. And then they bring him in, and he then becomes a purple cap holder. क्या हो रहा है? कुछ तो भी like this whole thing was bizarre, and that, also that game, like, so Lucknow bats first, they score 200, and like you have Puran who's going crazy, Mitch Marsh going crazy, David Miller comes, they post 200, like Lee is a shit team, Lucknow has scored 200, and so this is a done deal. And then Delhi off to a disaster, right? They're like what?
Three down, like very
Three
quickly.
down in single digits. Three down in
Yeah,
single digits. This
nine for
game,
three or something like that.
yeah, this game is done and dusted. Lord Shardul has taken 2 wickets. This is absolute pandemonium. And then, in true Lucknowi fashion, they go and win because Ashutosh Sharma, right? And he was one of the bright spots in Punjab last year, along with Shashank. They let him go, and he shows up as an impact sub. At that point, I think they were like 5 down, or
Yeah.
yeah, I think they were five
They
down.
were five down for 60 odd.
5 down because Faf is also gone, Akshar is gone, and then it just Stubbs and him, and then they're like playing. Even then, at that point, I mean, thoda to khel lenge na. It's not like they'll fold up for like 100 or something, 200 hai, so they will at least try to get competitive and get to 150, 170 something. And then the sixes start coming, right? The runs start going, and then it's like, okay, what is happening? And even then, at that point, when Stubbs got out, I think it was 170 for 5 or something like that, right? And there is no batting after that to come.
Yeah, no, actually, Stubbs got
No,
out
sir,
a little, 100 odd for, yeah,
100 for 5, and there's
110
no
odd for
batting.
5. Yeah.
No batting to come. And some guy called Vipraj, who I've never heard of, and that guy is also then going guns blazing. He's going faster than Ashutosh, and like, this is now a game. We have a game on our hands. And yeah, and Lucknow also same thing, right? Shardul takes 2 wickets, and after they're like, nay. तुम बैठ जाओ. Like, they don't even bowl him out.
Shardul did not bowl at all after that.
Yeah, he
Only
just
two
bowled
overs.
2 overs in the power play, and I thought maybe he also got injured because it was, Lucknow Cyberians were injured. Maybe he also got injured, I thought. Because, yeah, the last over they have the spinner who's bowling the last over, and yeah, it was very weird. But it was heartening to see that, they got this guy, Prince Yadav, who was bowling with heart. This other guy, Rathi, Digvesh Rathi, I think his name
Yeah,
was. And he
Digvesh, yes,
was
the spinner. Yeah.
the spinner, and so on. I was like, okay, Zaid Khan has unlocked something here, but then just to see the way it was going, so that you're not having Shahbaz Ahmed bowl the last over
The
of a
final over,
game.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like those weird things that were happening. But they fixed all of that next game with Hyderabad, right? They fixed all of that. And I was surprised they dropped Shahbaz and brought in a bowler, because I thought they would have dropped one of the other ones, the Prince or someone else, because Shahbaz can give you runs with the bat. But especially since they were playing at a ground which needed a lot of runs. I mean, Pooran, man, I have always been a massive fan of Pooran, right? Even
Yeah,
in the
same,
World
same.
T20, even the World T20, he's everything that that you want Rishabh Pant to be, and which Rishabh Pant is not, right?
I think he got out against a full toss as well.
Yeah, so I don't know. But imagine that team, they have Marsh, is fit. I don't know how. It's only 2 games, so we can't tell. There's 12 more games to go. We don't know if he'll be fit for that. But again, Markram is misfit as an opener, I think.
Yeah, I
in
think
that
the
team.
only
Yeah.
misfit or the only missing link there is Vakram.
But if Pant opens, because Pant has opened in some games, in some warm up games and all that, if Pant opens and Markram comes at 4, which actually is more natural for Markram to be that guy at glue at 4, because then Miller and all these guys are after him, right? So if Markram bats at 4, Pant opens, I think that team can still do pretty well. Now that they have Shardul to give them some bowling.
Now,
Yeah.
finally, we can talk about the team we were referencing earlier, and that would be Punjab, who, of course, under the new quote unquote Sarpanch, that is Ricky Ponting. Not my words, their own official team handle has been calling him that. So, your impression of Punjab Kings? Because, like you said earlier, that earlier it used to be you would not even need to look at the squad of the team. You
Yeah,
would know that Punjab are going to be back.
They've just played the one game, so it's hard to call it based on that. But Shreyas Iyer, man, that game, he was so good to watch. He was so good to watch. I didn't expect him, like, okay, I expected him to like score like 50, 60, at a 160 strike rate or something like that. Very much like how like Rajat played the other day, right? That kind of innings I was probably expecting from him. But even that team, right? They don't have any openers. They have Priyansh Arya, Prabsimran Singh.
Yeah,
If that is the
Prabhsimran is
team,
still the opener, yes.
if that is the team that you're putting out in the power play and saying, okay, this is the time to maximize, and these are my two options, I still don't know that's the. So Prabsimran getting out early probably was the best thing that happened to that team that day, because Shreyas was able to come out, in the second or third over. But they have a Josh English who they are not playing, because if Josh English opens, I think that team looks much better. But then that puts a balance, because then they cannot play Omar Zai.
And
But again, man, Shashank showed up. Shashank showed up, and that was absolute carnage from him in the end.
His innings made a huge difference because that game was decided by like 10 runs or something eventually. Despite the fact that Gujarat they started pretty okay, then they slowed down in the middle, and they kind of lost their way there. Another team that's a bit of an enigma, Max. We don't know. They are in that Lucknow category of what, not sure what to think of this team.
Gujarat, right? Always a team you looked at it being like, huh? Yeah? Like, what is this team? Like, you were depending on Tewatia. Tewatia is the biggest enigma, because every season will throw you something. When it started, there was this guy called Asnodkar in
Back in 2008. Yeah.
Yeah, was striking like crazy, but then fizzed out the following season. There was this guy, Valtati in Punjab, Paul Valtati, had a crazy one season and then fizzled out, right? So that's how I was expecting Tewatia thing to also happen. Okay, that 2021 series, he was absolutely mad, and then I thought he would fizzle out, and he didn't, he didn't. And this is 2025, and Tewatia is still in the mix. So that's a very surprising streak that's happening, but they're still depending a lot on Shah Rukh Khan, Tewatia, which I don't know is a proven um, you know uh, back engine or not. Their top three is where I think everything has to come from. Sudarshan, Hill, and Butler. But even Sharfin Rutherford, man, I mean, that day he was doing pretty well. But I don't know if he's your bank for finishing in 14 games or not. So
Yeah, there is so he's the third sort of that dragon meme of those three dragons. So two of them are like Nicholas Puran and Shimran Hetmeyer. The third one probably is Sharfain at the moment. I think the one remarkable thing that happened in that game was, of course, Vijay Kumar Beshak's over of absolute masterclass on how to bowl the wide Yorker to Sharfain Rutherford. He bowled like basically some 6 or 7 same deliveries, and Rutherford got beaten the same way every single time.
I had no clue. It's almost a case like that's what people are doing to Russell as well, right? It's almost a thing wherein like, okay, anyone from there, this is what we should do to them. You hit it on the legs, it's going away. So your best option is to they do that to Russell. We've seen them doing that to Rutherford as well, which is why I said right, Nicky P is so, and they've done it to Hetmeyer. Even Hetmeyer, they've done that. But Nicky P, that's why is so fantastic because he hits even those. He hits everything. That's the reason why Nicky P is above all of the other guys from West Indies.
And while two games is still a small sample, I think in both games Nicholas Puran has shown both hitting range and the ability to adapt incredibly well. In fact, it was his dismissal in that LSG DC game that began the turnaround. Otherwise, LSG were looking set for 240 and not like a 210, which eventually Delhi needed to chase. So we have kind of taken the whole round of all the teams back.
Yeah,
So
the episode is done. Thank you for listening to Bits and Pieces.
So
we'll be back
next week with more stuff. But looking forward, it's time to, I mean, in classic Bits and Pieces tradition, to make some bold predictions in terms of, obviously, currently where the table is at. Like you said, early days as well, and some of the teams have not even expressed themselves fully. Really, are we going to see this hold for at least another week, or do you think normal service is going to resume? And the biggest elephant in the room question, which you will have to address, which is how do CSK turn things around after that?
You're asking me?
Unfortunately, it's a panel of two, Max.
I still will maintain the same, is that I think that team is picked, the squad at least has been picked to play games at the Chepauk, right? Where at least this is what initially, when you looked at the players that were being picked and the stock that they're known for, that's what you think. Because when you had on one side, people are just loading up hitters like, Nicky P, Ashutosh, all these just loading up. This other side is loading up guys like Deepak Huda, Rahul Tripathi, who are not your known to be hitters, but they're more like, intelligent players or smart players which will do things here. Same thing goes for, and that's why, like, okay, so when they won that first game against Mumbai, right? We thought, okay, this is the template. Every game at CSK is going to be this 170, 160 kind of a thing, and they will go chase it down or they will defend it, right? But the RCB game was that I still think is the aberration. There's a lot of obituaries that have been written since that game. I guess that's how emotions work, which is okay. I still think it's too early to call it. I still think it's that one bad day in the office because a lot of things that had to happen happened, right? And this is just how I think it. The way that I think that team is set up is that they need 70 to 80 runs from Rachin and Rutu. They need another 70 to 80 runs from Tripathi, Huda, and Dubey. And then they need 30 to 40 runs from Jad and Sam Curran. That is how the team is set up, because if you add this all up, you reach that 160 to 180 number if this happens. So that is how I think the team is set up. And that didn't happen yesterday. That didn't happen, right? Because your Dubey, Huda, and Tripathi gave you nothing.
Had absolutely nightmares.
Give you nothing. So if you take that's the 70 runs that you're expecting from that trio, and that 70 runs didn't happen, so then you lose a game. That's why I think it's an aberration. A lot has been spoken about Tony and number 9 and all that nonsense. But I actually think that if you disassociate the name, then you don't expect someone who's walking at number 9 to win your game. If someone who walked in at number 9 gave you 30 runs, you will take that. Forget the name. Forget the name and the background music and things. But if a guy who walks out at number 8 or number 9 gives you 30 runs, you will take that any day in franchise cricket. So forget it's the 7 above that who have to give you that, once 180 runs, and then anything you get from 8, 9 and all that is a bonus. So that's how I see it. I still see it as an aberration. A lot of people are calling for retirements and this, that, and a complete shakeup. I don't see that yet. But however, PDP, Prashant DP on the pod, who's also on our group, was asking me and say, do you think this team can score 200? And I would say yes, no. There's no way this team is meant to score 200 because of what I just said, right? Yeah. This team is meant to score 170 to 180 and get those kinds of tracks at Chepauk, right? And because if they get 7 games at home, they'll play in Mullanpur, they'll play in Ekana, they'll play in Jaipur. So that's 10 games where they can expect that kind of a surface, and they'll just go and give walkovers in Wankhede and Eden Gardens and Rajiv Gandhi Stadium and so on. Right? It just doesn't matter. Just give them walkover, right? Because you're going to get absolutely creamed. Your batting cannot do those 220, 230 games that we're seeing in other places. But at least there is hope in 3 other non-outside games, 7 games at home. So out of 10 games at home, 10 games that you play in grounds that are somewhat made for your team, if you win 8, then you're good, right? And by fluke of some stroke of luck, one of these away games in one of these crazy stadiums falls your way, then you are easily well into the playoffs, right? You have 9 wins at this point. So I think that's how the team is. But I don't think it was the pitch. I think it was really they just bowled badly. That's that second over from Ashwin.
They bowled and fielded badly, I guess.
Yeah, Ashwin, Jadeja are supposed to be their bank, right? They may not get the wickets, but they're supposed to be their bank. They're supposed to be this 4 overs for 30 kind of a thing. So 8 overs for 55 to 60 is what they expect from both of those guys, even if they're not wickets. That didn't happen, right? So they were both completely getting carted all over. And again, you have Dhoni coming out at 9 to bat, right? So
you had somebody like a Shivam coming in as an impact sub. So
yeah, they have options galore. So I still think it's early to call it for them.
Okay, so and of course we'll have an eye on all of these things in the upcoming weeks. Before we sign off, Max, quickly just to pick the best of the week so far. So your pick in terms of performance. I know there have been so many of them, but anything that kind of stood out to you. I know you've spoken a lot about Nikki P. So is it going to be one of the Nikki P ones?
No, I'll tell you why. The Nikki P was always expected. Like for me, Nikki P scoring is not a new thing because I watch the IPL to watch Nikki P. So it is not the one that I did not expect that happened was Quinton de Kock. QDK I thought was a spent force, and I thought like Venki Mysore was mad when he let Phil Salt go and got QDK. QDK also, if you look at the last season, he was at Lucknow. So, he was at that troika of keepers because they had QDK, they had Puran, and they had Rahul. And he wasn't doing well. In fact, some of the games Kyle Mayers had played, QDK had and ahead of QDK and all that. So, and he's not playing much international cricket. So I thought this was going to be a horrible thing. But QDK that day, in that knock, that 97 or something that he made,
Yeah, 97. It was the plethora of 97s that was happening.
Yeah, we had so many 97s this week already. But that 97 was a lot different because it was very un-QDK style, right? Even when he's played before, and he was an opener in Mumbai, right? He would come in that first 10 overs, he would do whatever he would go and he would go. But this guy stayed beyond, into the power play. The spinners are bowling. He played the spinners. He played the slower ones and he went into the middle overs. So that was not expected. But it was very surprising, which is why to see that innings from Quinton, right? Mitchell Marsh, you expect him to play, Nicky Puran, you expect him to play. Rachin, you expect him to hit. You expect all of these other guys to score. But I wasn't expecting that one. What about you?
I would again put obviously I've talked a lot about the LSG DC game, so the The game there was what the surprise game was, the Ashutosh Sharma innings, primarily because it is one of those things where he comes in, he plays initially, tries to settle in, plays a 20 ball 20, and then he absolutely goes berserk over the next 10 or 10 or 11 deliveries, whatever it was. And it was just such great hitting, which was another interesting aspect to see. I'm not usually somebody who would side with big hitting innings as sort of the standout. You'd probably want to pick like a bowling performance, but I think this was very pleasing to watch. Sometimes a lot of big innings or big hitting innings are mostly like watching, I don't know, probably violence in most action movies. But this was like watching John Wick because the action was so smooth. So I think that would be my pick. And what I'm really looking forward to
What
is
about bowling? What about bowling?
hmm, I would say I was super impressed with. I really liked how Vijay Kumar Vashak was used. I think that signals kind of a new era in some senses for the IPL of such a level of specialization. I mean, that would make Adam Smith blush. That he was brought in for a very specific purpose. He was given a very specific mandate, and it was mostly a very specific matchup. And he ended up nailing it, and which made obviously a huge difference to the result in the end. So I thought, I
There's
mean,
a
even
video circulating now of Rutherford walks up and then Arshdeep kind of signals
yeah,
to him ki, usko lao, and then he comes in and does that. So yeah, it adds more to the drama because of that. But I mean, I think he was the obvious choice because if you look at the list of ones they had, but
the
just that,
sub.
but looking at Arshdeep doing that bowling action thing, bring him and he brought him, and that was nice. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that concludes our two-man roundup of the entire IPL first week. Hopefully, we have a larger panel to punch and. So it remains that exclusive class of critiquing Michelangelo's David. So that brings us to the end of this IPL special. Max and me bringing this to you again next week, or probably a larger panel. But do tune in and listen wherever you listen. This is Tariq signing off along with Max.
So yeah.
TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?